There is a secret that Venice keeps better than any conspirator, the true depth of its foundations. I found it in the perpetual damp of a palazzo basement, where the stones weep with each high tide. It began with a librarian's sneeze. In the vaults of the Biblioteca Marciana, a curator was recataloguing the Zelada manuscript, a 15th century copy of the Travels of Marco Polo. As she lifted the heavy cover, a brittle, almost transparent scrap of vellum, used as a makeshift bookmark, fluttered out. On it, in a tight, pragmatic hand, different from the manuscript's scribe, was a line in Franco-Venetian. La vera ricchezza non c'è in quel che si spende, ma in quel che sta ancora, dove il leon incontra l'onda senza bagnarsi. True wealth lies not in what is spent, but in what is anchored, where the lion meets the wave without getting wet. The librarian recognized the dialect as 14th century Venetian merchant class. The lion was the Lion of St. Mark, symbol of Venice. It meets the wave everywhere. But without getting wet. That pointed inland to a place where the lion's image was high and dry. Or, more cleverly, to a place where the foundation of a building bearing the lion met the waterline in a sealed, dry space. Research pointed to the Corte del Milion, the courtyard named for Marco Polo's nickname, Il Milione, near the remains of his family's palazzo. A stone relief of the Lion of St. Mark was set into the wall just above the highest watermark of a typical acqua alta. Directly below it, at canal level, was a water gate, a sealed, submerged entrance. The hunt for the 85 million in Yuan dynasty gold had begun. Clue 1. The lion's dry feet. The water gate was bricked up in the 18th century. Using endoscopic cameras slipped between crumbling bricks, we saw a narrow, flooded corridor leading under the building. The city, citing preservation concerns, forbade excavation. But we could study the structure. Sanborn-type fire insurance maps from 1905 showed a peculiar anomaly. The building's foundation was double-walled along the canal side, creating a hidden, interstitial space. The breakthrough came from dendrochronology. Core samples taken from structural beams during a mandated restoration dated the primary roof to 1290, but the floor joists over the Androna, ground floor portico, to 1305, after Marco's return. The floor had been rebuilt. Beneath it, sonar revealed a void. We obtained permission for a minimally invasive probe. Drilling through a section of the historic floor, we lowered a light. There, resting on a bed of ancient gravel and oyster shells, to control damp, was a small, iron-bound chest of Asian lacquerwork, miraculously preserved by the constant, cool humidity. It was not the treasure. It was the key. Inside the chest was a ledger, written in Marco's own recognizable hand, a mix of Venetian and Persian trade notations. It listed goods, silks, spices, gems, and at the bottom, a sum. 126,000 in Sayawak of pure gold, received from the great Khan's grace, for the return journey and the establishing of fortune. Beneath that, a riddle. The number of cities between the dome of St. Mark and the Khan's great bell, multiplied by the years of my faithful service, shows the way. Mind the flood. Clue 2. The Polo equation. The number of cities between. Marco's book describes many cities, but which counted? The dome of St. Mark was Venice. The Khan's great bell was the giant bell in Khanbaliq, Beijing, he described. We compiled a list of every major city he explicitly mentioned as stopping at or trading in on the primary Silk Road route between Venice and Beijing. The number was 44. The years of my faithful service. Polo served Kublai Khan for 17 years, according to his own account. 44 x 17, sure 748. Shows the way. 748. What? Steps, paces. The ledger was specific. Venetian pied, feet. 748, Venetian piedi equals roughly 260 modern meters. Mind the flood. The direction was implied. From the lion relief, the only logical vector was away from the canal, inland, following the axis of the building. Using a laser measure from the center point of the lion, we measured 260 meters. The line ended not in another building, but in a small, enclosed courtyard that was once a campo for the Polo family's horses and goods. In its center was an old, disused wellhead. Clue 3. The well of the Mongol bell. The well was dry, filled with rubble. Lowering a camera, we saw that about 6 meters down. The circular brick shaft gave way to a square, stone-lined chamber off to one side. A pozzo nero, a cesspit, but constructed with unusual care. Its walls were carved. We excavated the well shaft. At the chamber entrance, the carving became clear. It was a detailed, beautiful bas-relief map of the Yuan dynasty's capital, Dadu, Khanbaliq, with its grid of streets and the Khan's palace. At the palace's location, there was a deep, round hole. It was a keyhole. The key was in the lacquer chest. Wrapped in the ledger had been a heavy jade disc. It fit the hole perfectly. We turned it. With a grind of unseen mechanism, a section of the chamber's back wall slid sideways, revealing a descending staircase. The air was cold and smelled of stone and ozone. The stairs led to a low, barrel-vaulted crypt. It was not flooded. A brilliant Venetian engineering solution was evident, a siphon drain connected to the canal, maintaining equal pressure and keeping water out. The room was a time capsule of the 13th century globalized world. Clue 4. The Khan's farewell gift. The room was not large, but its contents were staggering. Stacked along one wall were Yuan dynasty gold siwash, rectangular ingots, each about the size of a small brick, stamped with Fagspa script, declaring their purity and the mint authority of Kublai Khan. There were 2 rows of 10, 20 ingots total. Their weight was immense. On a stone table lay other objects, a necklace of perfectly matched Persian turquoises, a carved jade cup, a small Buddha figurine of solid gold from Ceylon, and a folded piece of exquisite Kessi silk tapestry. But the centerpiece was what lay atop the tapestry, a golden paisa. The paisa was a tablet of authority, a passport issued by the Khan. This one was of the highest grade, made of solid gold, inscribed in 3 scripts, Mongolian, Persian, Chinese, with the words, "By the strength of eternal heaven, an order of the emperor. Let him who bears this pass receive everywhere obedience, aid, and safe passage." It was Marco's get-out-of-jail-free card across 5,000 miles of empire. The final artifact was a letter, on paper, in Uyghur script, the Mongol administrative language. Translated, it was a personal note from Kublai Khan to "My faithful Marco, Eyes of the West." It thanked him for his service, granted him the paisa for his journey, and bestowed the gold for the telling of our greatness in your lands and for the seed of future trade. It was dated 1291. It was real. This was no smuggled loot. This was a formal diplomatic gift. The Polos hadn't just been traders, they'd been envoys. They hid it not from thieves, but from the volatile politics of a Venice that might seize it as foreign wealth or tax it into oblivion. They built this vault to preserve the seed capital of a Eurasian trade empire that never quite took root. The seed capital of globalization. The Italian Ministry of Cultural Heritage was flabbergasted. The discovery redefined Marco Polo from a possibly exaggerating travel writer to a documented, high-level diplomatic agent of the most powerful empire on Earth. Valuation was complex. The 20 gold ingots alone, at 1 kilolus each of near-pure gold, were worth over $1.2 million in bullion. But as unique, stamped artifacts from Kublai Khan's court, each was priceless. A conservative auction estimate for 1 ingot was $3–4 million. The paisa, the letter, the jade, all were world-class historical objects. An aggregate conservative valuation for the entire hoard, considering its intact, contextualized nature as Marco Polo's returning gift, was set at $85 million. The Italian state claimed it as national treasure. A settlement was reached with the building's owners and our team. The hoard is now the crown jewel of the Museo di Palazzo Venezia in Rome, displayed as the Khan's Commission, Marco Polo, and the Silk Road Treasury. The true discovery was the validation of a partnership. Polo wasn't just an observer. He was a trusted servant, rewarded with the capital to build a bridge between East and West. The Polos buried that bridge's foundation stone in Venetian mud, hoping the future would find it. They understood that true wealth isn't spent, it's anchored, waiting for the tide of history to turn. For 7 centuries, the Lion of St. Mark gazed over the canal, its stone eyes guarding the secret of the golden paisa and the ingots below, until a librarian's sneeze and a historian who believed that the greatest stories are always anchored in truth finally followed the numbers. The wave met the lion, and the lion at last gave up its gold.